A day in the life of a Sumerian. Inside the world's first civilization, it is 3000 BC. The land is southern Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, the sun-scorched plain cradled by the unpredictable Tigris and Euphrates. Here, in the cradle of what historians would come to call the world's first civilization, a human named Lugalenki opens his eyes just before first light. Like millions before and after him, his day begins not with ambition or leisure, but with the unrelenting demands of survival. Before dawn, the weight of earth and thirst. Lugalenki lies on a reed mat, not unlike the dried stalks of barley that grow in the fields outside his city. There is no mattress, only packed earth beneath him, and the imprint of woven reeds pressed into his back. His house is small, built of sun-dried mud bricks, thick enough to keep the midday heat at bay but cold as stone in the desert night. The air is already beginning to warm, thick with the scent of dust, smoke, and last night's onions that flavor nearly every meal in summer. His throat is parched. He remembers the ration from yesterday, a ladle of water drawn from the communal well, carefully strained and stored in a clay jar. The rivers teem with life but also with waste, disease, and the bodies of the dead. Water must be treated with reverence. He sits up slowly, joints creaking, fine protesting years of labor in the irrigation canals. His clothes are simple, a woolen kilt wrapped and belted at the waist. Linen is rarer and reserved for priests or the wealthy. He steps barefoot into the courtyard, the heart of the house, open to the sky, where meals are cooked, clothes are washed, and children play. Smoke curls from a small fire where his mother stirs a pot of barley porridge. "Eat," she says without looking up. The gong will sound soon, the call to work, civilization built on silt and sweat outside. The first gong echoes from the ziggurat at the massive step temple at the center of the city. It is not a bell but a deep, resonant clang that cuts through the quiet morning, summoning every able-bodied person to the canals. Summer exists because of water, and water must be tamed. And like Egypt's gentle Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates flood wildly, unpredictably. One year brings drought, the next, devastation. To survive, the Sumerians built an intricate web of irrigation channels, dikes, and reservoirs, a feat of engineering that sustains their cities, their granaries, their very lives. By sunrise, Lugalenki is ankle-deep in silt, shovel in hand. He joins a work crew clearing debris from a clogged canal. The sun climbs quickly. Within an hour, the heat is oppressive. By mid-morning, it is brutal 110°F, then 115°, then higher. Sweat evaporates as quickly as it forms, leaving white salt crystals on his skin. His hands blister, his shoulders ache, but he does not stop. If the canals fail, the fields dry up. If the fields dry up, people starve. There is no margin for error. Around him, men and women of all ages dig in silence or chant rhythmic work songs to keep time. Even children help carry baskets of mud. There are no weekends, no pensions, no retirement. You work until you cannot, and then, if you are fortunate, your children care for you. Midday bread, beer, and the smell of a city at noon. The gong sounds again, this time to signal the midday rest. Lugalenki trudges back through narrow and paved streets. The city walls loom ahead, their thick wooden gates standing open by day to allow laborers passage. Inside, there is even hotter, mud bricks radiating stored heat like an oven. In the courtyard, his family has prepared the midday meal, flatbread baked in a clay oven, more onions, a few dates, and beer. Not the crisp, hoppy lager of today, but a thick and filtered brew, nutritious, slightly sweet, and safer than water thanks to fermentation. They drink it through reed straws to avoid the floating husks and sediment. Beer is sacred. The goddess Ninkasi, the lady who fills the mouth, is honored with hymns that double as brewing recipes. In summer, beer is not just a drink, it is wages, medicine, and divine offering. Priests consume it during rituals on behalf of the gods, who, it is believed, cannot eat physical food but enjoy its essence. As the heat peaks, the city falls still. Dogs pant in the shade. Even the rats move sluggishly. This is the time for rest, for mending tools, for quiet talk. Lugalenki leans against the courtyard wall, eyes closed, listening to the distant murmur of the river and the low hum of thousands of lives pressed close in a world with no concept of privacy. Afternoon, in the shadow of the ziggurat when the sun dips slightly, work resumes, but now in the service of the temple. The ziggurat dominates the skyline, a man-made mountain painted in symbolic colors, white for purity, black for the underworld, red for blood and life. At its peak sits the shrine of the city's patron deity today, perhaps Enlil, god of storms and king of the gods. Lugalenki is assigned to carry offerings, bread, beer, oil, a bleeding goat up the steep staircases to the temple platform. Only the high priest enters the inner sanctum. The rest leave their gifts on the terrace, where incense curls into the sky and prayers rise with it. The temple is more than a religious center. It is the administrative, economic, and educational hub of the city. Here, scribes, mostly young men from elite families, etc., would shape marks into wet clay tablets, inventories of grain, contracts for loans, hymns to deities, even school exercises filled with corrections and reprimands. Your signs are sloppy. Do it again. Writing was invented here not for poetry or philosophy, but for accounting to track temple donations and rations. Yet from this practical need arose cuneiform, the world's first writing system, capable of expressing anything from legal codes to love songs. Lugalenki cannot read, but he knows the weight of those tablets. They represent order, memory, the fragile scaffolding of civilization. Evening, gods, justice, and the stars above. As dusk falls, the city gathers again in the ziggurat courtyard for the evening prayer ceremony. The high priest chants in an archaic tongue, offering a lamb to Enlil and asking for protection, rain, and bountiful harvests. Then comes news: a new canal section is needed, all will labor, extra beer will be provided. The crowd accepts this with weary resignation. Later, near Lugalenki's home, a man lies screaming, his leg broken in a fall from a roof. A priest arrives, examines the injury, and declares it the work of a displeased god. He sets the bone with wooden splints, applies a poultice of herbs and fat, and chants incantations to drive out the demons of pain. There is no anesthesia. Survival depends on luck, strength, and the favor of the gods. At dinner, the family eats barley soup with lentils and grilled fish from the river. Above them, the stars blaze brighter than any modern sky, unobscured by light pollution. The Sumerians know these stars not just as lights, but as omens and gods. They have mapped constellations, tracked planetary cycles, and even predict lunar eclipses, not for science, but to appease the heavens. After the meal, neighbors gather at a street corner shrine. Someone brings a jar of beer. Another pulls out a board game using dice made from sheep knuckle bones. An old scribe explains how they count not in tens, but in 60s, using the 12 segments of their fingers and the 5 fingers of the other hand. This is why an hour has 60 minutes, a circle 360 degrees. Their math, practical, precise, ingenious, will outlive their cities. Music begins, a lyre, soft and mournful, playing the tale of Inanna's descent into the underworld, a story of death, rebirth, and divine drama. Lugalenki hums along. These myths are not just entertainment, they are the moral and cosmic framework of life. War, empire, and the fragility of order. Life in summer is rarely peaceful. Just weeks later, scouts bring word: Kish is mobilizing. Their king seeks to divert the river upstream, starving summer's fields. The Lugal, the big man, war leader, calls every able man to arms. Lugalenki, a canal digger, is handed a wooden spear and a reed shield. He marches with hundreds of others, farmers, potters, weavers, toward a city they've traded with for generations. War is not distant or abstract. It is personal, chaotic, and brutal. He climbs a ladder onto Kish's walls, stabs a terrified defender, and watches a man die by his hand. There is no glory, only terror, exhaustion, and the hollow ache of survival. Victory brings loot, grain, silver, slaves. But it also brings trauma. Back home, life resumes. The plow pulled by oxen now tills fields 10 times faster than hand tools. A neighbor proudly shows off a block of soap, made from ash and animal fat. These small innovations, the wheel first used for religious carts, the sail, the potter's wheel, accumulate into something greater, civilization. Yet summer is fragile. Around 2300 BC, a man named Sargon of Akkad rises from obscurity to build the world's first empire. He conquers summer not by destroying it, but by absorbing it, imposing Akkadian governors, collecting tribute, yet preserving Sumerian temples and scribes. Later, mountain tribes, the Gutians, overrun the land, ignorant of irrigation, and the canals sealed up. Famine follows. Cities crumble. For over a century, Mesopotamia descends into a dark age, but Sumerian resilience endures. From the south, a leader named Utu-Hegel rallies the people, expels the invaders, and restores order. The ziggurats rise again. The canals flow. Legacy, echoes of summer. By 2000 BC, summer as a political power fades. Babylon rises. The Akkadian and Amorite tongues replace Sumerian in daily speech. Yet summer never truly dies. Its legacy flows through time. Writing gives cuneiform, inspires alphabets across the Near East. Law gives Hammurabi's code, builds on Sumerian legal tablets. Time gives 60-minute hours, 360-degree circles. Science gives astronomy, medicine, mathematics. Culture gives the Epic of Gilgamesh, the flood myth, the concept of the hero's journey. Even today, when you check the time, write a message, or drink a beer with friends, you participate in traditions born in the mud-brick cities of summer. Final rest. Life of Oke Lugalenki dies not in battle, but in old age, surrounded by children and grandchildren. His back is ruined, his hands gnarled, but he has survived drought, war, and famine. He has seen the ziggurat rebuilt, the canals restored, his city reborn. His life was hard. He never owned silver. He slept on reeds. He rationed water. He feared the gods. But he also laughed with friends, told stories, tasted beer in the cool of evening, and watched stars that still shine over Iraq today. In summer, okay was enough. And sometimes, okay was everything. You, reading this in climate-controlled comfort, with clean water at your fingertips and a full belly, live a life beyond the dreams of summer's kings. Yet you owe them a debt. They dared to build cities in a desert. They turned chaos into order. They looked at rivers, stars, and suffering and asked, how can we do better? They were the first to say, we are more together than apart. And in that simple truth, civilization began.